So the war being waged was being fought over whether the world economy was going to be one of neoliberal finance capitalism and rent extraction, or industrial capitalism evolving into socialism under democratically elected leaders. And as Rosa Luxemburg put this matter a century ago, what's at issue is whether the world is going to have socialism or barbarism. And this is not a clash of civilizations. It's a crisis over what kind of civilization the world is going to have. And that is how you should view the American attempt to create its empire. To the United States, essentially, power and empire means the privilege of intervening in the policies of other nations to prevent them from deviating from any financial or trade or military dependency on the United States. And the result is a kind of globalization that's antithetical to national moves to protect industrial and agricultural self-sufficiency. It's necessary for other countries not to be self-sufficient, but to rely on the US for their military arms, for their military strategy and direction, for their food supply, for their internet technology, and for everything else that countries basically need as an essential. This is like military warfare in the sense that it aims to capture the commanding heights of foreign economies, starting with communications, transportation, power utilities, most of all the finance and banking systems, the information technology of monopolies. But what makes this Cold War diplomacy different is that the United States really is not agreement capable. An empire, it's supposed to have some kind of ruling law. At least the Romans said we brought law. Unfortunately, the law was we get to take everything from you and tell everyone all of your leaders that we don't like. But at least there was a law. But the United States says we're the exceptional economy, meaning we are not obliged to live up to any international contract or agreement that we sign. That's why the United States insisted on having veto power in the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank when it joined. It's why it insisted on having veto power in the UN Security Council when it joined. It says no other country can tell us what to do. But we can tell other countries what to do, and we can destroy them if they don't follow what we tell them to do. So essentially, this inability, refusal to live up to contracts goes from the very beginning of the American Republic in its land treaties with the Native American tribes. It violated them all. Just ignore it, just a sheet of paper, because there's no enforcement process. To President Trump's withdrawal from the Iran agreement, from the Paris Climate Accord, and from the ballistic missile agreements with Russia, and from the arms parity policy that dates all the way back to Eisenhower's administration in the 1950s, trying to prevent nuclear war. Not to mention the US promises that America made to Russia that if it let Germany reunify in 1990, NATO would never move a single inch or foot eastward. Well, of course, it just broke all that. And the US said, well, what are you going to do about it? What's the if there's no penalty and no means of enforcing international law means nothing. That the United States just again recently announced we're not going to join the Hague Tribunal or international law, because if we did, you'd accuse our leaders of war crimes and try to hang us like we hung the German Nazis. So of course we're not going to obey international law, because we are the law. The law is whatever we do. When Americans do it, it's not criminal. Well, that's what President Nixon said. When the president does it, it's not breaking the law. Essentially, that's America's philosophy internationally. So the US officials now defend the rights to use nuclear weapons and have them pretty widely distributed. And the incoming Biden administration here has hinted that it plans to appoint a super hawk, Michelle Flournoy, as Secretary of Defense. She was already Assistant Secretary of Defense in the Clinton administration. And in that role, she was the principal author of a report in May 1997, the Quadrennial Defense Review. And that review defined US vital interests to include, quote, preventing the emergence of a hostile regional coalition anywhere, and quote, ensuring uninhibited access to foreign key markets, energy supplies, and strategic resources. In other words, any attempt by foreign countries to keep their oil, their land, their mineral resources, their agricultural land in their own hands makes them an enemy, and we intend to fight them militarily, and we reserve the rights to use atomic weapons where necessary. In other words, wherever we want to, because we feel threatened if they will become independents. Foreign independence, foreign democracy is defined as an economic and hence existential threat to the United States. So announcing that the United States no longer felt obliged to, by the UN Charter that prohibited the use of military force, Flournoy wrote, when the interests at stake are vital, we should do whatever it takes to defend them, including, when necessary, the unilateral use of military power. Now, by framing the unilateral use of military force all over the world as defending vital interests, the Pentagon asserted the right to commit what international law defines as the supreme international crime. And that was what the judges at Nuremberg said. But the United States now defends its ability to do what the German generals were hung in Nuremberg for doing. So the result is a fight really between opposing political systems. It's not jealousy within a common economic system of competition. It's not rivalry. When the United States tries to block China's Huawei or TikTok from North American and European markets, it's not rivalry at all. It's a life or death attempt to prevent rivalry from other countries that that might seek financial and military independence. And so the United States leaves its allies with little choice but to try to break away from the exploitative nature. What is Europe going to do? America tells Europe, don't use Huawei or TikTok, don't use Chinese technology, use American technology. Don't buy inexpensive Russian gas, natural gas. You've got to stop the Nord Stream pipeline and buy expensive liquefied natural gas from the Americans. And you have to spend billions of dollars building ports that are specially fitted for container ships taking American gas. So you'll become dependent on American gas, not on Russian gas. And the problem with Chinese technology, America made very clear. China has not built American spy systems into its technology. This October, the Trump administration said China does not permit a backdoor so that the government can read what goes on in Huawei and TikTok things. If we can't read what users of these systems say all over the world, we feel insecure, and we can't permit that. You Europeans and other countries have to buy Facebook and other Google and other American systems where we have a black door and we can read everything that you say through the National Security Council computers, because otherwise we feel insecure. So this is, again, it's a totalitarian attitude. Russia's foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, said on October 13th, he said, the most distinctive feature of our time is this. Everyone understands that a redistribution of power is taking place. And this is exactly what our Western colleagues are fighting so adamantly, clinging to their centuries of dominance to prevent. And he went on to say a number of things that are worth repeating, because they show at least how explicit Russia is in realizing the gauntlet that is being thrown down by the Americans. He said, the substance of the modern epoch is an objective process of formation of a more democratic, multipolar international order. It is a difficult and long process. It will probably take an entire epoch. And he added, the European Union has just tried to add more sanctions against Russia, claiming that Navalny, when he got sick, it was all Russia's fault. And because of that, somehow Europe should break relations with Russia. So Lavrov said, if the EU is arrogant enough to declare with this sense of unconditional superiority, that Russia must understand there will be no business as usual. Well, Russia wants to understand whether there could be any business at all with the European Union under these conditions. Those people who are responsible for foreign policy in the West do not understand the need for mutually respectful communication. So we should probably stop communicating with them for a while. Well, that is the only way to have an alternative to the American Cold War empire. It is necessary to withdraw from it. There's no way that you can outcompete with the Americans because they won't permit competition. They insist, if you do have a competitive sector, whether it's producing a raw material or whether it's a technology sector, the Americans insist in owning it and remitting the profits to their own economy. So the idea is whether you're going to have a world where the US siphons off the wealth financially, not by military occupation, but financially, or you get financial independence to prevent this. And the American philosophy is privatization of natural resources and monopolies. To use privatization as a siphon to extract the income of labor and industry in your countries. Well, the reason that the United States in the 19th century, Soviet Russia, China have public utilities and public investment is you want to keep the cost of living low. You want to provide essentials at various subsidized costs or freely. You don't want your cost of living to go way up by turning your health system, your schooling system, your roads over to private monopolies to turn into toll roads, $50,000 a year education, and others. The whole idea of a successful industrial economy is you need public ownership and public investment in basic infrastructure, and the United States wants to privatize all of this. So ultimately, the attempt to financialize and privatize your infrastructure will leave you end up looking like England looked after Margaret Thatcher and Tony Blair. It's the road to an economic dark age and depopulation. You look like Greece or you look like Argentina. Now, under the American sponsored dollar diplomacy, you have the disparities in wealth are going to widen, not only among nations, so that the wealthy nations get much richer than the third world. And right now, third world raw materials exporters are broke because of the coronavirus interruption of activity. So they're unable to pay the foreign debts. And the United States and European foreign investors are saying, this is great. The virus is now enabling us to come into bankrupt Latin America, Africa, and the Near East. And now we can grab all of we can tell their governments, well, we'll give you money to survive in medicine, but you have to sell off your public utilities and land and anything that you still have in the public domain, you have to sell off to us. So the United States is now trying to treat Latin America, Africa, and the Near East like it treated Russia after 1991. That's the ideal. That's a success story, and it's a kind of financialized dollar diplomacy, and it's applied at home as well as internationally. The domestic American population economy is polarizing. The population is falling deeper and deeper in debt. Homelessness is rising. Unemployment is rising, and the cost of living is rising so much through a privatized healthcare system and pension fund system and privatized utilities that American labor cannot compete with other countries. There's no jealousy of competition. There's no competition at all, given the American high cost of financialized rent-seeking cost of living. Well, the problem is that with having a wealthy nation is that wealth is addictive and it produces greed. And greed is rapacious. It wants to have all of the money in the world for itself. Henry Kissinger said that power is the ultimate aphrodisiac, but if power is achieved through money, then the aphrodisiac payoff is impoverishing the rest of the world by siphoning off all the money in the economy up to the upper 1%. And that's exactly what's happened in the United States since the Obama depression of 2009 that we're still in.